Hello, this is Lee Spector, Professor of Computer Science, and this is an ASN Wired interview. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Our first question: why is Professor Spector interested in computer science? I got interested in computer science by being interested in other topics, primarily philosophy and music were really my entry points. I was a philosophy undergrad, and I did a lot of studio art and music as an undergrad. I studied a lot of different subjects as an undergrad. I came across computer science as a tool for doing things like making computer music. But then I got really excited when I read a book by Douglas Hofstadter called Gödel, Escher, Bach, An Eternal Golden Braid. And this book, which won a Pulitzer Prize, tied together many topics that were interesting to me, including philosophy of mind, philosophy of language, music, visual arts, mathematics, metamathematics, and tied them together through the study of artificial intelligence. And I became really excited by the prospect of artificial intelligence being a way to approach many of the things I was interested in. That led me to really study computer science and eventually to get a PhD in computer science. And along the way, I found out that I was really fascinated by and excited by many other topics in computer science as well, not just artificial intelligence. All right, next question is: what is Professor Spector researching? Well, I've got a lot of projects underway. I like to collaborate with people, very often people in other disciplines, whether it's psychology or linguistics or evolutionary biology or physics. But many of my research projects lately focus on the intersections between evolutionary biology and artificial intelligence. And specifically the idea of using things that we learn from how nature works over evolutionary time, finding really creative solutions to many problems, apply some of those tricks that nature uses in computational systems to solve interesting and difficult problems. This area called evolutionary computation, and my students and I do research inventing new evolutionary computation techniques and applying them to problems where other techniques aren't yet capable of finding solutions. Why did Professor Spector become a professor? Well, one thing about being a professor is that you get to keep asking questions and learning new things, so you get to keep being a student, and I was very happy being a student, and I'm very happy being a professor because it's a way to continue that kind of work and life. But I also love teaching, and I really like working with students to understand what I think are exciting ideas and tools, and also working with students as collaborators. So in many of my courses, I try to set things up so that students can work on questions of their own interest that intersect with the material that we're covering. And I find that to be really invigorating and a wonderful way of advancing the things that I'm interested in myself. So I love teaching, and I love being an eternal student, and that's why I became a professor. What is Professor Spector's favorite Amherst memory? Well, I have not been at Amherst College for a very long time. I came in the fall of 2019 as a visitor, and now I'm no longer a visitor. I'm happy to say I'm here for good. But more than half the time I've been at Amherst College has been during the pandemic, so it's not a lot of time in person on the ground. I would say that some of my best memories are, and this is very general, but it's happened a lot, is meeting new people who are really interesting, unexpected in some ways, people coming from different perspectives and being very open to discussions, collaborations, new ideas. Been at Hampshire College for many years teaching, and in part at Hampshire, and in part from before Hampshire, I have a commitment to certain ideas like project-based, inquiry-based education, collaboration as opposed to competition, and so on. And meeting with people at Amherst and talking about these ideas, I would see their eyes light up, and people were very open to some of the ways that I want, some of the things I want to explore, and the ways I want to work with students. So it's been very welcoming and very engaged. And so I guess those are my favorite Amherst memories. All right. Is Professor Spector also interested in neuroscience? I certainly am. So one of the themes in my research is to try to take ideas from nature and explore them with computation, both for the sake of better understanding the natural phenomena and also for the sake of exploiting the way nature does things to do things with computers. And that includes evolution, as I mentioned, but it also includes brains. So understanding how brains work is, of course, incredibly useful for building AI systems, but I also hope to better understand what we are, what our brains are, and how they make our minds. As a graduate student, I worked with people at NIH in the NINDS, the National Institutes of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, worked with neuropsychologists looking at brain damage and the changes in reasoning and behavior in people with brain damage. And my contribution was to bring to the table AI models of reasoning and behavior and to see what light they might shed on how human brains work. Also did some work with developmental psychologists looking at how brains develop. And so I'm quite interested in many aspects of neuroscience. What is Professor Spector's favorite weather? About 98 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. I grew up in Maryland, so New England is always a little chilly for me. And I really like a warm, sunny day. Not a big fan of the snow yet. I've been working on it. I like to bike a lot, and so I don't like snowy, icy roads. What did Professor Spector major in college? I majored in philosophy. Although that's not the whole story, because there were moments during my undergraduate education when I would have said that I was majoring in engineering, physics. I don't know if I ever thought I was majoring in art or music, but I did a lot of different things as an undergraduate. I explored a lot and ended up majoring in philosophy in part because a lot of my interests in other disciplines, I was interested in philosophical questions about them. So for example, in physics, I was very interested in what quantum mechanics means, so interpretations of quantum mechanics and what it means for what the universe is and what we are. And so there were essentially philosophical questions that were driving my interest. I've since worked in physics with quantum computing, so I was able to come back around to some exciting things in physics as a computer scientist. What are Professor Spector's hobbies? Music and art is a big part of what I do when I'm not doing computer science. I play guitar mostly these days, although I have been a saxophonist and electronic music maker at various times. But these days I spend a fair bit of time playing guitar. Biking, gardening, those are some of my primary hobbies. going to art museums. What is Professor Spector's favorite Val menu? Well, sadly, I have not been eating in Val since the pandemic started, so it's a bit of a distant memory, but I guess I always looked forward to brownies and lattes from the latte machines. Those are the main things I think about. Right. What advice does Professor Spector have for students? My main advice is to explore and to not be afraid of asking new questions and not be afraid of asking new questions of people. Don't be intimidated. I think that being an undergraduate is one of the best experiences that anybody can possibly have, and that aspects of it that are unique and wonderful are the ability to explore and to have a community of people who are willing and able and in fact eager once you ask to engage with you on almost any topic. And that is really precious and wonderful, and I say you don't know where it's going to lead when you embark on it, but you should go for it. And you should not let shyness or too much focus on one particular thing prevent you from doing that exploration and asking those original questions. You may think that your question couldn't possibly be important because you're not yet an expert and you're only an undergraduate. Well, that's wrong. Your questions are important, and where you're coming from is for everybody different and unique and brings something important to the table. My main advice is to explore and reach out. Thank you.